Hey, is it, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hmm. Testing, 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 testing. Looks like I'm being heard here. Can you hear me okay? There we go. Can you hear me?
There I am.
All
Yes.
right. All righty. And it's HHSMAK. Is this Dustin? It's Dustin, right?
Yeah, this is my wife's computer.
Okay. Yeah, I was pretty sure I recognized you. You can't always tell in these video things. Anyway, thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started here. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hang on one second. I'm having some technical difficulties.
All righty.
Okay, there we go.
All righty. All right. Well, thanks for joining. I'm hoping maybe one or two more will join in. But this is, once again, so much that we could talk about this week. There's a few, we wanted to get to everything that I want to talk about, and I know I've knocked it back quite a bit. But one of my main things I want to talk about this conformity and obedience, as well as I'm going to sort of dovetail into Robert Cialdini, who is a fantastic social psychologist. He's a professor emeritus at ASU ASU, Arizona State University. He has taken Dr. Cialdini has taken fantastic, I think, career in what he's done. He's sort of married psychology and marketing. Really, he's kind of the guru of influence and persuasion, and we're going to get into him a little bit more. But before we get into him a little bit, I don't hope you had a chance to watch the old candid camera videos and part of the videos in the course room there, where the people get on the elevator and everyone's facing the opposite way. That is the norm. Did you get a chance to see that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That's
That's
why I'm
okay.
using my wife's computer.
It's
My
okay.
little boy poured water on mine.
Oh, been there, been there. You'll get a chance to see it. I'm just gonna. I won't give any sort of spoilers by telling what happens here. And we got someone else joining us too, so we're glad to have everybody on the line. So in the video,
No.
who is it?
Cheryl.
Hey Cheryl, thanks for joining us. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. Things feel a little bit disoriented. I don't know if that's because I'm on the medicine I'm on or not.
Uh-huh.
I don't like it though.
Yeah, I bet.
But
Well, yeah, you've been in my prayers. I won't go into too much here. You can share if you
okay.
want, but I don't want to, that's your business. But yeah, I'm happy that to have you on here. Like I said, I pray for my students and even especially my prayers. So just sit back and relax and let me do the driving, okay?
Oh yeah, I will. Believe me.
Feel free to jump in at any time you want, but I'll do the driving for this. We won't be in there too long. I won't keep you too long. I was just talking about
That's
the one the video that we have that shows it's an old candid camera uh, television show, which if you're not familiar, was very popular, I guess, in the 50s and early 60s. I remember watching it as a kid, and they would just play little
oh,
pranks on people, and they videotape them or I guess film them at that time, you probably couldn't get away with it quite as easily now. And they would do silly things to see how people would react. In this one particular video here, people get on an elevator, and elevator, especially back then, there was I think a lot more social graces, if you will. People typically didn't talk on an elevator. It was considered rude to talk on an elevator, especially to strangers. But everyone just got on and minded their business and faced forward. But in this particular video, you'll see, if you haven't already, people turn around and face the opposite way. Like they're all they've been, they're in on the trick, on the prank, and there's maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of them. So you feel a big sort of a social pressure to do what the group does. And they were, Candid Camera was just doing it as a, for fun, but it has a very strong psychological implication that we tend to go along with what the group does. And I mean, that there's the Ash experiment where people, draw the lines or say the lines or which one's bigger and those kind of things, which you've seen also in the videos. And this was just kind of a fun thing to watch. And it's interesting to see how people do conform and obey, kind of what the crowd does. Now, that in and of itself is neither good nor bad. In fact, it can be very good at times. It's good for people to cooperate and do what is supposed to be done. Now, where you get into problems is where, sometimes you need someone to kind of question, why are we actually doing this? Is there possibly a better way to do this? You need other people, but, as long as they sort of play within the rules, that's kind of what I teach young kids. Like, it's okay if you don't think this is a good idea, but if you want to change something, you need to go about changing it in the socially appropriate ways. You can't just, not follow the rules because you don't think it's right. But that's a whole other discussion. So yeah, from a law enforcement, there's 2 or 3 of you guys, Dustin, involved in law enforcement as a profession, and I'm sure a lot of times you kind of, when you're asking people to sort of maybe stay behind the yellow caution tape, if you will, you kind of want everyone to conform, and most people will. Those 1 or 2 people want to lean over, get closer, or make some kind of trouble. You say, why don't you, in your mind at least, why don't you do what everyone else is doing? You need to conform, and you need to obey kind of what the rules are here. And so that is, that's when it's good, when people say, gosh, I need to stay back here, or I need to slow down because everyone else is slowing down. I see blue flashing lights or red flashing lights ahead on the road, and I see other cars slowing down. So I should take that social cue and conform to what they're doing, and that can make it safer. Where it becomes problematic, and this is one of the things that Stanley Milgram did. One of the motivations for his experiments was, where it becomes a problem. We see this a lot with cults, where people can, kind of get in line and conform because they believe the leader of this cult is, a great religious person, or the second coming of Christ even, and they conform because other people around them are conforming. So all of a sudden it seems normal to them. One of the biggest examples you read about in textbooks and everything, obviously, is in Nazi Germany in the late 30s and 40s, where soldiers did conform and would obey people because they were in uniform. So there's a lot to do with that, and that gets to go along the lines with what Cialdini talked about with authority. People tend to, comply more with someone they see as a person of authority. That may be someone in uniform. That could also be someone with diplomas on their wall, if you will. So
right.
Kind of what I wanted to kind of kick off here. Any thoughts from either of you? And Dustin, you just got mute. There you go.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
I mean, I see it a lot, but you can take it further with the law enforcement. I mean, there are the grotesque crimes like murder and rape and things like that are just nobody tolerates. But many of the laws that we enforce are set up by society's view of how they should be.
Uh-huh.
So what we do as a profession is to almost enforce conformity, if you think about it in that aspect.
Like, give me an example if you can, Dustin.
Well, let's, how do we decide that something is what we don't want to happen? Like, say, take a fighting, for instance. In the Bible, there are many stories of David and Goliath. They fought. There are wars that are fought. So fighting is part of us as a human society. You know, violence tendencies are as a human society. But we decide as a society that we don't want to be that anymore. So the majority of society says, okay, it's illegal to hit someone. So now we have aggravated assault and battery. Well, because society decided that this is something they don't want to have, we say, let's make this a law and let's enforce it so that we can get people to conform to that.
Okay, sure. And Cheryl, feel free to jump in or not. You know, and again, like I said, this is neither good nor bad. Like with the authority part of it, you know, like say I mentioned, I guess last week or 2 weeks ago when we had police officers here where I'm at right now. I'm not, you know, probably not 30 feet from where my office is here. You know, that says something. That says authority. So typically, the norm has been in society that people would kind of, you know, be on their best behavior, you know, even if you're upset or what have you, when you see that going on, even if you weren't the subject of the issue happening, people tended to conform and be on their very best behavior. You know, we see that slipping some or waning some now, but, you know, so where that's good is, yeah, like I like to see that. You know, when you have a volatile situation in a crowd, you know, people, you know, it's interesting how maybe 2 or 3 people can control 300. You know, in all honesty, if the 300 people wanted to do what they wanted to do, no matter what, 2 or 3 people couldn't stop them all. They may stop a dozen or more, but they wouldn't stop 300. But the fact that there's a badge and a uniform says, okay, this guy, we have sort of said, okay, he's in charge, and we've sort of as a society decided to listen to him. Again, that is slipping some, and that's when you probably see that more than I do. So, you know, there is, you know, a good part to that. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the detriment to that, or the underside of that, the backside of that is when you have someone who abuses that power or uses that to manipulate people. And sometimes, you know, and they, you know, I'm talking, you know, extremes here, but it doesn't always have to be to that extreme, and it doesn't always have to be to, you know, the complete detriment of someone. You know, sometimes people say, you know, they're, let's say, for instance, a life coach. Okay, I even say I'm a life coach, but basically anybody can say they're a life coach. You don't really need any education or credentials. And I'm not, and you may not have. You could be a good life coach without that. I'm not saying that you couldn't be, but it's interesting that you know, some people they promote that they are this expert in some particular thing, when and people, you know, it's hard to sort of investigate everything that you do or that you pursue. So they can kind of fall in line. Oh, this person's a life coach. My life coach said that I should really quit my job and, you know, start a car wash. Well, you know, that may or may not be a good idea. So that authority and that conformity, again, is neither good, or I shouldn't say it isn't neither good or isn't neither good. I really, probably a better way to put it, it is both good and bad, depending on upon how it's used. So Robert Cialdini, I mentioned him before. He really is. I really do appreciate the work that he's done, and you'll see him mentioned in this course, I think, somewhere, as well as if you study social psychology, pretty much anywhere you're going to hear about his name. You're going to hear about his work. He's relatively young still. I think he's maybe 60 or 65 right now. He's traveled the world, and he spent really his entire life, professional life, studying influence. And, you know, what he promotes, he teaches influence, but one of the tenets of his practice is that it must be ethical. He promotes ethical influence because a lot, again, with what we're talking about here, a lot of these things that that he talked about, like authority, for instance, could be used in a way to gain only what we want. And that's the difference. Is it ethical or not ethical? Persuasion is ethical. Manipulation is unethical. So, and this is a debate I have with some people sometimes, or not a heated, but a spirited conversation. Because I'm a big proponent of persuasion. The idea of persuasion is, let's say, for instance, I was a medical doctor, which I'm not, and I happen to know that this medication is going to help you heal, and there's going to be no side effects to it, or very, very few side effects. And someone maybe has just kind of sworn off all medicine because they may have had a bad experience. So I would use any kind of persuasion techniques that I have to get you to take this. I mean, that'd be, I had to have to do that as a human being, as a person who's sworn to, to the Hippocratic Oath and those kind of things. Where as opposed to the drug dealer who is, just trying to get you to take something to get high and feel better so he can make money off of you. He'll convince, try to convince you of other things. So that's what Cialdini talks about. He talks about there are 6 principles that he's found to be universally true, and I always use the acronym R-CLASS. Okay, R would be reciprocity. So in order to be a good influencer, I must put good things out there. The idea is this. If I want to be invited to birthday parties, then I need to invite people to my birthday party. If I want to have friends, then I need to be a good friend. If I want to have people invite me to lunch, I need to sometimes invite them to lunch. So that's reciprocity. We tend to do for others what they have done for us. That's just, we're sort of, bound to do that as a society, and it's very, functional, if you will. And then the C is consistency. Consistency means that we tend to do more of what we say we were going to do. In other words, if I say that, and I make this announcement, that I'm a very charitable person, then I feel sort of obligated, when people come and ask me to donate, that I will donate because I've made that public statement. I've said I'm a generous person. This is used, or has been used, very effectively with prisoners of war. It's a psychological kind of warfare, and again, this would not be to persuade, but to get manipulate, where they will have maybe a writing contest for prisoners to have them write about all the good things they like about the prison camp, and there may not be much that they like, but they will try and find some things in order to win this writing contest, because there will be a significant prize for that, and they'll have 200 inmates, if you will, or prisoners of war, write against each other to try and, at least we sleep inside, or the food's not good, but at least they give us 3 meals a day, those kind of things. And when you write down that you kind of like someplace, then you tend to conform a little bit more, if you follow what I'm saying. This is done, with marketing too. Like, why do you like to use, ABC shampoo? And they get a bunch of people writing in why they like it. That sales will go up there. So that's the reciprocity. That's consistency. L is liking. In business, people say that we do business with people that we know, like, and trust, and that's true. We certainly don't like to do business with people that we don't like. So if we like someone, we will tend to allow ourselves to be persuaded by them more often. The R-CLASS, R-C-L-A-A. A is authority. All right, that's the police officer. That's the doctor. That's the scientist in a lab coat. That's someone with a clipboard. There's a joke that says you can go anywhere in any building if you just walk around with a clipboard, and start writing stuff down. No one questions you. So that's the authority part. And that's another good Candid Camera little episode. I think it's buried in there somewhere. Someone does that. Yeah, go ahead, Dustin.
When I was a younger man, I was a photographer for American Studios, and what they did was go around to Walmarts and take photographs.
Oh yeah.
Well, when we went through our photography training, one of the big things they told us not to do, they wanted us to dress professional, but we weren't allowed to wear a white shirt. And so I asked, why do you not want us to wear a white shirt? And they said, well, what little kids are trained is that when you put them up on a table and you're wearing a white shirt, they're about to get a shot.
Uh-huh.
So that, that authoritative look of I'm a doctor, they wanted to avoid that so they would have
Sure.
smile faces rather than scared ones.
That's an excellent anecdote. I'm going to remember that, Dustin. I'm going to use that in future talks. I promise I will, because that's an excellent anecdote that goes right along with what we're talking about. Nice. Sheila, do you want to add something?
Oh, I'm just listening to all of this, and when Justin mentioned David and Goliath, and I was trying to find the conformity in that, and I'm thinking nobody conformed to fight the giant. I mean, it's one little person decided he could take care of it, and he believed in it, and he got it done.
Right.
And if everybody else had fired, slingshot at a rock, they all might have got him at the same time, but it might have been done sooner and done sooner. But I was just thinking about that for a moment.
Yeah, there was no conformity in that instance, but I'm just saying that fighting, I was showing examples that fighting is part of human nature.
Yeah.
And the conformity is that as a society, we have voted that fighting is not good. That's where we conform.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
I think you're both right. I think if you look for conformity in the story of David and Goliath, while David didn't conform, everyone else did. All the other soldiers that were there, they looked to each other, and no one was volunteering. So they didn't feel compelled. We also call that, groupthink or the bystander effect, which is very similar concepts, not exactly the same. But yeah, so you had a whole army there, and they're all looking to their left and their right, and nobody said, "I'll take him on." No, it's a great story. But then, David, he does step up, and perhaps encouraged by the Spirit of the Lord. But the story is interesting because as little as he was, he had taken out bears. He had taken out lions before. I read, the fact that's the slingshots that they used in those days was akin. It was akin like a 38. They could be very accurate, and that rock came that fast. So I do certainly believe the Lord had His hand in it. It's easy to see that he had a weapon that he could use, and he was not gonna back down. So excellent points, both of you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to wrap the last couple up here. So we have authority. S is social proof. And that is a little bit like conformity. Social proof is where you look around and see, where everyone's going. Like people will run if they hear people scream and say, "Look over there!" That they'll, without even knowing, they'll watch what other people do and they'll go. You see this sometimes in traffic. You'll see when there's a traffic jam. And living in South Florida, I hope I see more than you guys do. I'm not sure exactly where you both live, but hopefully, there's places in the world where there's not traffic as much as down here. But sometimes you'll see everyone stopped on Interstate 95, and you'll see a guy 2 or 3 cars ahead of you start to, get over to the other lane, and then everyone else starts to do it too. Like, what made them decide to go? Well, the first guy, he had some reason. Then everyone else just kind of falls along. That's called social proof. And then the last one is scarcity. Scarcity is used by marketers quite a bit, and I'll share my own personal story with scarcity. Marketers are always saying, only 3 left or limited time. That compels us to want to get something. We want more of what we can have less of, as Cialdini says. My own, and I live and breathe this stuff, if you will. I'm teaching this. I train people in these kind of things. And I do some coaching for salespeople, and this is obviously something that I talk to them about. And you would think that I'd be immune to it. Maybe you would think that. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't. But I'm not. And I'll tell you how I'm not immune to it and how it got me, and I didn't even realize it. A few years ago, when I'm not a huge football fan like I once was, but a couple years ago, it was Denver Broncos against the Carolina Panthers, and It was probably, at the time, we didn't know it. It turned out to be true. It was probably going to be Peyton Manning's last game. And I'm not a huge Peyton Manning fan. I mean, he's fine. I got nothing against him or anything like that. And the other guy is Cam Newton. Now, Cam Newton, to me, is this might be one of your classmates, Buzzing. No, it's not. Cam Newton is a much more exciting football player to me. I like his style. In fact, like I said, I don't care one way or the other about Peyton Manning. His style is somewhat kind of boring to me. He just kind of drops back and passes. I mean, he's good, but it's the other guys that are more exciting on the field. But at Cam Newton, like, he scrambles and he runs and he's mobile. He might have a design run play that he runs, and I think that adds a dimension to the game that's more exciting. So, again, if anything, I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, having grown up in South Florida. But again, not the hugest football fan as I once was. Now, you would think, given everything, that I would kind of root for Carolina because I like Cam Newton, his style, better. But I found myself, when push comes to shove, no, I'm going to root for Denver because this might be Peyton Manning's last chance at a Super Bowl. Cam Newton will probably have many more chances. So which part of of Cialdini's 6 principles that I fall prey to? Scarcity. Because, again, Peyton Manning, this was going to perhaps be his last one, right? So there was a scarcity that he would not have any more. So I said, let him get this one Super Bowl, right? So these things, we're not immune to it. It's kind of how we're wired. So I could talk about these kind of things till 10 o'clock tonight and keep going, but I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to kind of end it here unless you guys have any questions or anything you wanted to add. I appreciate you hopping on here. Like I said, we could talk a long time, but obviously, we can't do that. So, any final thoughts, Dustin?
No, I'm good. This was a short and sweet one. Had a lot of information.
Yeah, I get going with something like that. Cheryl, how about yourself?
Well, I didn't hear your beginning, but if you want to go over that, that would be good too.
Yeah, we were only on a couple of minutes before. Basically, I believe I was just mentioning about the elevator experiment. You heard that part, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And like I said, yeah, that was it. Talking about Cialdini and how there's a lot to this, and a lot that you can actually apply in any career that you're in. And I highly recommend reading he's only got a couple of books. He writes in a very user-friendly way. And you're going to see, through your college career, he's going to come up a couple of times. So you'll get a chance to look at him. There really wasn't much more than that. So I definitely do appreciate you both being on here. And I'll say a quick prayer and we'll end it. And I'll promise to give you your points. For being on here, and so I'll have a quick word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you so much for Cheryl and Dustin and their fellow learners as well. I pray for their health. I pray that you watch over them and keep them safe in their professions and all that they do, and bless those who care for them also, including their families, that they will support them and care for them as well. As we all move forward, seeking your purpose in our life, that we may fulfill that. And while our work is like dirty rags and filthy rags compared to what you've done for us, nonetheless, we hope our work is pleasing in your eyes, that we may be good examples of your love and mercy. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, folks. All the best to you. We'll talk to you soon.
You too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Before we end, I am going to, rather than a Bible verse, I'm going to ask you two to get your points. Anyone who tunes in and sees the recording, you're going to just have to tell me what acronym I used. The R-CLASS, RCLASS. That's the acronym. If you put that in there, that'll get you your point. All right. All the best, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.